Notre Dame fans, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It is Sunday night, a little after 7 o'clock. We were trying to get our
ducks in a row
copy, like our film copy down, so we had everything that we needed. But we're back to break down the Notre Dame game. We have dove into the film, and yes, Vince, we were correct. There was a lot of frustrating things on the film, but it was a lot more fun watching it after a win.
Yes.
And that's always the case. That's usually the case. Sometimes I've coached against some teams that are really bad, and we won, but I'm still really mad because of how we played against an inferior team. That is not the case yesterday. This was a good win. It was an ugly win. Yep. It was a sloppy win, but it was a hard-fought win, and there were some glimmers of hope from this game that they can build on them, right? So you can't say, hey, play this way the rest of the year and you'll be fine. Nope, got to get better.
Right.
But this was a good step in the right direction. And that's kind of what a little bit of the focus of tonight's show is going to be on. Some things that worked, some things that were there that we thought were successful, that we kind of believe as we look at this team and what this team could be and should be and all those other areas are areas that we think, hey, you know what, keep building on this, and this team has a chance to be pretty good. And that's what the focus of this show is going to be, Vince.
Yeah, and again, this is we watched the film. This is what we saw. If we had a room in the Goog and we were, breaking down the film and talking to the players, this is kind of how we would do it. And these are the things that we noticed. This is not we need to fire the coaches. We need to fire this player. We need, you know what I mean? It's not, this kid needs to play more.
That's not the purpose of this show.
It is not the purpose of this show. So I just want to, for any first timers that are out there that have never been on an Upon Further review show with us, we're breaking down the film like coaches. That's how we started kind of this whole Irish breakdown thing, is we like to break down film. So
hence the name.
This is our favorite show, man. Like, Vince, at least it's mine. I really enjoy doing this show.
Agree.
Yeah.
And it gets us back to our roots to a degree.
Exactly. 100%.
There are always things, Vince, that you say, hey, when you watch the film, you come out of it feeling a lot better than you did. And the offensive line play was even better than I thought. And you kind of watch it live and you're like, they're like 5-6 yard running them to death. There's like no big holes.
Sure.
And you're like, they got to get better. And then you go watch the film and you're like, yeah, that's not going to get better until they start throwing a football. I mean, because right now.
Well, exactly. Because
a lot of the guys making these plays are safeties. Linebackers coming from the outside that aren't respecting the run. So that's certainly a big part of it. But we are, Vince, going to kind of dive into, some of the things that we have seen from this football team that give us a glimmer of hope. And I think the offensive line is a good place to start. I didn't think Jarrett Patterson played well live. And I always say I watch the back a lot, and I'll kind of try to watch the replays at times, but I don't watch the line as much. But there were several times I looked and I watched it and I'm like, Patterson just didn't play well. Apparently, after I broke down the film, those are the only times I saw Jarrett Patterson were the only times he had a mistake, because I thought overall he played solid football. Not great, but good, solid football. He's still clearly not 100%, but he definitely played better on the rewatch than I thought live. Now, the false start, still a problem.
Huge problem.
And I'm going to chalk that up a little bit to the four of them to more of Drew Pine than on the offensive line. And what I mean by that is not that I'm blaming Drew Pine, although I do blame Drew Pine for the Braden Lindsey false start. We went back and watched that.
Yeah.
And what you see is Braden wasn't lined up. Now, Braden has to get lined up. That's Braden's fault.
That's number one.
The quarterback's job, you never call for the ball to be snapped until everybody's lined up. And Braden was still clearly walking, trying to get on the line because the ref wasn't marking him as on the line. So that's on the quarterback as well. Right. And then when you do change quarterbacks, you can have a cadence difference. I was talking to a friend last night. I still remember the Georgia Tech game in 2015, which was Deshaun Kaiser's first start, and Ronnie Stanley had like 3 false starts in that game because the cadence is different. And so we will we'll dive. I think we'll see how that goes moving forward. That's you can use that excuse game 1, game 2, and game 3. That excuse is gone. You've now had 2 weeks of preparation with that quarterback. You got to figure it out. Okay.
Right.
I thought Joe Walt played a really good game, run, pass. I thought the left side of the line was clearly the strength of the team.
Including the center, by the way.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. A guy that I thought played, I would say played great, but I thought pretty well after watching the film is Zeke Correll. I think the Mike Fire early in the game was not on Zeke. We're not going to draw that up, but basically a defensive lineman crossed his face. He can't pass up a guy that's crossing his face to go pick up a Mike. Jarrett Patterson needs to see that. and step in. He saw that the guy went wide. He's got to come back to that. Jarrett Patterson missed that.
So remember how we talked last week about turning your shoulders and not being parallel to the line of scrimmage? That's what Patterson did. He turned his shoulders outside, so he didn't see the pressure coming. If he stays parallel and he gets a hand on the guy that was originally on his shoulder, he slants to Jarrett's left, ends up getting picked up by Joe Alt. He can put a hand on that guy, but if he stays square, he's also then able to pick up that blitzer. And so that's what happens when you turn your body, your head turns too, you lose that peripheral vision that you need to see the different things that are coming. Remember that play, and this is a extreme example, but the play when Q picked up that blitzer in the Georgia game coming from the way right side, it's because he was square to the line of scrimmage and he had his head on a swivel. So I mean, that's really, really important, and he just didn't do it on that play. And so I just want to throw that out there.
He turned his head right outside.
Correct.
Instead of kind of and turned his shoulders, like his eyes took everything else there.
Yes, absolutely.
Where when on the play you're referring to, Q looked inside, but he kept his shoulders square. His eyes didn't take his body yet. Then he went out. Then his body went with him.
Because he saw someplace to go. And
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's something that obviously will need to get corrected, Vince. So I want to talk about sort of the play of the offensive line, right? And we're going to go. I thought the run game was blocked a lot better than I thought. Now, it was not perfect, but there were clearly Cal had zero respect for Drew Pine pulling the ball and keeping the edge. They came hard from the backside a lot. They were constantly getting 8-9 in the box post run. Meaning, like, once they came down, the safeties were not respecting Ram's deep ball. They took advantage of it a couple times in the pass game, which we'll get into, but not nearly enough, and they'll need to do more down the road. But, again, I did think, Vince, that we saw some really good things, and specifically so you can't be good running the football if your center doesn't play well.
Right. Agreed.
And I thought Zeke played a good football game. So I moved his feet a lot, and he was going against the smallest guy he was going up against was 315 pounds.
That was the point I was going to make. He had a challenge this week as far as an individual one-on-one matchup, right? Because it was a guy with a lot of size. And we've talked about Zeke Correll being undersized in the past. That's why he didn't do so hot at guard. And his better position is at center because you can be a little bit more undersized. You're doing a lot of double teaming, things like that. But you're right. There was a 315, I think a 355 pounder on him as well, if I remember off the top of my head. But I mean, he was dealing with some girth up the middle, and I thought he handled himself.
Movement.
Yes, I thought he handled himself.
He was getting movement. Yeah, he played with good pad level. He kept his feet moving. And there was even times, Vince, where one thing he was not doing well yesterday is he was taking too narrow. So like on down blocks, he was taking like too narrow of a down block angle, which was allowing our guys to kind of get over the top of him a little bit.
I got you.
But he was recovering well and getting a body on, which then allowed the backs to run by. So clearly there's still some things to work on. He competed his tail off. He moved his feet. He played with good pad level, and he was effective. And so we're going to look over a couple things to just ignore it. I know what you're responding to. Just ignore it, okay?
Yes, sir.
We're gonna call up a couple plays that show examples of what we're talking about. Now, I thought Josh Lugg and Blake Fisher were the weak side of the line, and I thought Blake really struggled to get movement. He wasn't playing confidently. He wasn't coming off with the same push that Jarrett, Zeke, and Joe Alt were. Josh Lugg just stops his feet too much, Vince. He had a couple really nice blocks, one we're going to show, but overall, he's just got to play better, man. He's a sixth-year senior. I'm holding him to a higher standard than I am Blake Fisher, who just had his fifth career start. He's got to play better.
And that's a really good point. And there were a couple of plays where Josh would get up to the second level and just kind of he looked like he was lost almost. And he's just not moving his feet well. He's not getting from point A to point B very well. He's not tracking linebackers as well as he should be at this point, being a sixth-year senior. And you and I have talked about it in the past. Guard is a better fit for him than tackle, in my opinion. And he's not really proving me right at this point,
because he's just not moving his feet.
He's just not playing. The fundamentals of it are just not going very well for him right now, and when he gets up to the second level, he's got to be able to break down, find that guy, and then drive. And he's just looking a little bit lost.
But I think that you said the fundamentals because we're about to drop a play that I think shows when he does move his feet.
Yes.
He was effective. The whole line was effective. And we're gonna bring up an inside zone play here. This is a run to Chris Tyree yesterday. And so we're gonna have a little fun here getting in the film room, everybody. All right. So Vince, on this particular play, let me just get this notepad out of the way and get this bad boy a little bit closer here. But on this particular play, you're going to see Notre Dame, they're running inside zone this way. So it's to the offense's left. Okay. So on this particular play, zone is basically combo blocks up to a certain point. So this is the left guard and the center. So we talked before last week, it's covered, uncovered. So on this particular play, Zeke Correll has no one on his shoulder. So he is considered an uncovered player. Okay. Jarrett Patterson has a defender lined up, and some people call this a one technique. Some people call this a 2-eye technique. Either way, he has a defender lined up on his inside shoulder. So these two will communicate right here on working together. And then the Joe Alt's basically just blocking out there on that guy.
Correct.
Okay, so these two are going to work here to here. They are responsible for that. And then backside, you have the left guard here and the left tackle here. Now, this is going to be, to me, this call needs to be that Josh Lugg is covered, because I believe this is more of a 3 technique, Vince. I don't know if you agree with that. That's more of a 3 technique.
Yep, he's on the
and
shoulder.
Then not a 4-eye. So I think Blake is uncovered. So
I agree.
These two are going to work together on. You can't really see that defensive tackle. He's stacked right in front of the linebacker. But basically, they're going to work on this level. And essentially what happens is they're going to combo block on the first level, and depending on which way the linebacker goes and which way the defender goes is going to determine who stays on the block and then who works to the second
Which is
level.
where the communication that we talked about the first 2 games comes into play.
So what happens is this defensive lineman slants outside here, and Blake kind of picks him up, right? So they're running away, so they don't necessarily need to get him. And then this linebacker crashes here. He crashes A-gap. So these two work together, and Josh Lugg sees it pretty well, Vince, and comes off and blocks it down and washes it down. And then what happens is this guy goes here, right? So this defender goes outside of Jarrett Patterson, and Jarrett Patterson just drives him outside, drives him out. And then this linebacker here crashes down here. Okay, so Zeke and Jarrett get a really nice initial block, and then you see the linebacker crash, Vince. And I thought they blocked it pretty well. Excuse me. I got to get onto the other screen. I got to get over here. So this cord's kind of getting in my way. Let me move it. All right. So hold on a second. Got to get this back here. So let me pull up the next version of that play, Vince, to kind of show people what it looked like after, because again, we unfortunately cannot show
the live video.
We can't show the actual live video because we would like to be able to monetize this video. Thank you very much, and get this play blocked. So here it is. This is the play post snap. So this is what you see post snap on this particular play. Okay. So then what happens here is, you remember the previous play, there was this number 8 was here and number 51 was here. Okay. 51 crashed that backside A-gap. This is actually a run to the left. This is Zeke Correll right here. This is Josh Lugg right here. They've actually switched on this, because what happens is Josh Lugg steps down, that defensive lineman crosses his face, and Josh just washes him all the way over here.
And that's where, when you're blocking somebody and he wants to go that way, and take him. I mean, use his momentum against him.
That's what I love about zone.
Yeah.
And this is Jarrett Patterson here. So you actually have your left guard here, your right guard here, and your center is right there. Okay, so then what happened here is Lugg or Patterson and Correll, who are usually here and here, were working that combo block to here. Well, that guy slanted outside, which Patterson took him, and then the linebacker crashed inside. So what Zeke did is Zeke came off, hit the linebacker, drove his feet, and then took this linebacker who crashed here and drove him out. Yep. And then you see that hole for the inside zone, right? That's one of the biggest holes they've had all season. That ends up being like about I think they ended up getting like 11, 12 yards on this, because look how close down the safety is right there.
Right.
That's who's making these plays. So until the RPO game, the vertical RPO game, not just behind the line of scrimmage RPO game, and until the pass game in general and the receivers block better, things like that, this is going to continue to happen. But it gives your backs a chance where you're in space and it's you versus a DB. And Audric runs over the guy and he ends up getting, I think, like 11 yards in the play.
Well,
but this is go ahead, Vince.
I was just going to say,
No,
when as a coach, when you're drawing up a play, okay, you account for everybody that's in the box. All right, when you're drawing up a play, you don't account for the safeties generally because you say to yourself, okay, my running back versus a safety, I'll take that. You know what I mean? And then that's usually how you draw it up. And to your point, until they can get a vertical passing game going, those safeties are going to cheat up. And they're going to be the ones making the tackles after a 5, 6, 7, 8-yard gain. You've got to, by virtue of your play calling and your execution, take those safeties and make them worried about the perimeter and the vertical passing game. That obviously wasn't the case yesterday. So even though the line played better, there were no big runs because the safeties were not respecting the deep ball. And they were up close, and their eyes were peeking in the backfield, and they were ready to come up. Eventually, I would like to see Notre Dame take advantage of that, right? And then you're going to get some looser safeties and things like that, and then you're going to see some more explosive running plays. As long as the offensive line continues to get better and better, and every game kind of gel more, and the communication gets better. And that's the other thing I want to point out while you're looking for the next one, Brian, is that the reason I'm not, hey, fire this offensive lineman and fire this offensive lineman is because this is the first time these 5 guys have played together. And it takes a little bit of time to understand each other's verbal and nonverbal cues on the offensive line. And you don't just want to throw away the time that they've had together, right? I think there is some validity to that where you're going to give these guys an opportunity to keep gelling and getting better. And if they can continue at this point, let's say they take another step next week against North Carolina, right? Now you're into the bye week. If they don't take another step, the bye week's a chance to reevaluate and see if there's another way to go. The bye week is a really good opportunity to do that. But if they take another step against North Carolina, now the bye week is let's continue to gel. Let's keep getting better and keep getting better and keep getting better. And then you keep moving on for the rest of the season.
So, Vince, there's some other plays I want to kind of get into. I thought inside zone was an effective play for Notre Dame in this game. Another effective play for Notre Dame in this game, I thought, was counter. I thought the counter play was probably their next best play. And the thing that I liked about it, again, is I thought they did a good job of getting movement at the point of attack and really being able to kind of get downhill and open up run lanes, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I thought that was obviously a positive from this. From this game, in my opinion, was kind of getting that kind of movement going. And I thought one of the things that we saw from this game too was, let me try to find this play here real quick, because for some reason it's not showing up in my album, but actually I just kind of have the whole. So that's all that I had. So let me find that play real quick. But I thought counter was another play where I thought Notre Dame was able to have some success getting room to work with the running backs. And it wasn't like huge room to work, but it was like enough to where you kind of felt like, okay, you can work with this, right? But I think it also shows, again, what we're seeing is they've got to do a better job of moving their feet, because this is an example of, this is Chris Tyree on a counter run. Do you know what that is right there? This thing right here? You know what that is? No. But do you see that thing that's in the hole? That's Josh Lugg's leg. Right? Because he stopped moving his feet. Now, he pushed the guy, but he stopped moving his feet. But you got a nice little crease here, right? But he has to then kind of avoid Josh Lugg's leg to kind of get in the way. Those are those things where you did a nice job, but you need to take it to the next level, right? And just get a little bit more of a push. And then again, there's a DB, an overhang guy just standing right there just waiting to play, because there's no fear of pulling and throwing a bubble or pulling and throwing an RPO or banging a quick slant or a quick RPO post behind, which a lot of teams really do. They'll run those glance routes or slant routes or quick posts off RPOs to say, hey, if you're going to bring these safeties down, we're going to pull that sucker and throw behind it. Clearly, Notre Dame doesn't have the confidence in their quarterback or their receivers right now to run those plays, which is a shame. Because if you can't do that stuff, you're eventually this is going to happen all game.
Correct.
Right. But I thought inside zone and counter were the 2 plays that Notre Dame had the most success with yesterday. And what you're seeing here is, you're seeing them. These are the tight ends on kickouts. You've got Blake Fisher Blake Fisher's here kind of ISO blocking this. And Josh Lugg was pulling on this particular play. That's how Josh got turned there, right? That's how your right guard got turned there. I thought the tight end blocking at the point of attack yesterday was average to below average. What I thought the tight ends did a pretty decent job of yesterday, Vince, was the movement blocks. The counter blocks were better yesterday than they had been in the previous 2 games. So at least that's a step in the right direction. But you're seeing more room to run here, right? And that's the thing for me that is kind of effective here is you're seeing them kind of come out and get more. Hey, look, we're moving them a little bit more. We're able to kind of go out there and create some looks where, okay, you're not blowing them off the ball, but you're at least getting a little bit more of a push. And those are the things that I saw yesterday. Now, finish a little bit better, right?
Sure. Yep.
And all 5 are got to get on the same page more.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely. No,
I think those are the aspects.
I was disappointed in the right side, to be honest with you. There were some plays where I felt like Josh, didn't continue to move his feet, as you had mentioned. Sure. And I felt like, and again, I have to keep reminding myself that this is Blake Fisher's 5th start. Okay. He's a young kid. But there are times there was one play where they got him out in front of, I want to say that it was a not a screen, but like a bubble, but they got him out in front of it. He just looks lost in space. Right.
He looks unsure of himself.
Yeah, exactly. That's a much better way to put it. I agree. He looks unsure of what he's going to do. He looks unsure of his feet and his movement and things of that nature. I think that'll get better with time. I mean, we know that he's an impressive athlete. We know what his pedigree is. But I just that right side has got to be better. Otherwise, you're going to be left-handed in your run game, and that's obviously not going to be great as long as the left side continues to mature and get better as they go forward. But I was really impressed with Joe Alt. I thought he had a really, really good game. And I will also say in pass protection as a 5, I thought they did a pretty darn good job. Look, Drew Pine had an opportunity to make some plays in the pocket. I mean, there were had a lot of time in the pocket. I thought the communication on pass plays outside of that Mike Fire that we talked about at the beginning, I thought the pass protection was pretty darn good.
Even on throws where they rid guys out and Drew just had to climb, he had a clean pocket to climb into. Yep. Right. I thought Jarrett's pass pro for the most part. There's one time he gave up a pressure, but it was a pressure, Vince, where the guy kind of beat him around on like a twist. Yeah. But even then he got beat, but he still kept the body on. So the guy wasn't able to come off and make the sack.
Right.
And that's where you want to be. Yeah. Right. That's where you want to be at this point in time. Yep. So speaking of pass game, Vince, I agree with you. I thought when that happened, I said, here we go. I looked at you and I said, here we go again. Like, the same old stuff, right? Haven't fixed a thing. And they really did. It was that mistake. And then they really cleaned it up after that. And it allowed them to do some things. Now, overall, the pass game had a lot of missed opportunities. I thought that the downfield pass game to the wide receivers was almost non-existent in this game. I mean, it really was almost. It was literally almost non-existent,
right? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, were just guys weren't getting open. I mean, they didn't call a lot, but the stuff they did call, you had guys not getting open, not working off routes, not running good routes, coming off slow, like they knew they weren't getting the ball. They got to figure that out in a hurry because you cannot beat good teams consistently if you're not even trying to throw the ball outside or down the field.
Yeah, no, completely agree with that. And that's, I mean, look, Ian Book was really good at a lot of things, but he was limited throwing it downfield. And so how did Notre Dame get beat in big games? Load the box, prevent all that short stuff. And now you've defeated Notre Dame's offense. Notre Dame can't be one-dimensional in that regard. They have to be able to push the ball down the field. My hope is that, the wide receivers, number one, get better, right? Get some separation, all of those different things. And number two, that I think Drew Pine's willing to throw the ball down the field. I don't see that as necessarily being.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I also think schematically they need to do more things to design receivers opportunities to get the ball down the field. And I thought they did a good job on that a couple plays yesterday. I wanted to drop a couple of plays that I thought this is Tommy Rees at his best, and they worked out for big plays, Vince. And we're going to talk about the 2 big plays to the run game. Okay. And so the first one here, it is right here, is this is the touchdown pass to Chris Tyree. So I want to show you the pre-snap look and what made this play effective. So Notre Dame is in 21 personnel. Okay. So that is 21. That's 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers.
They ran 21,
This is
a decent amount, which I really
a
liked,
lot.
actually.
Yeah,
I really
a
liked
lot.
that. Yep.
That's Audric Estimé there. This is Chris Tyree here. Okay, and that's the tight end right there, 2 receivers. Okay, so 21 personnel. So that's what Notre Dame is lined up in. Then you can see Cal. I mean, Notre Dame's in a split backfield, so Cal can basically play their normal alignment, which is basically Vince a lot of kind of cover 2 to the field against sort of a 1 receiver set, and then kind of 4 to the field. So you have a cornerback here, you have a safety deep here, a safety deep there, and then this cornerback is up. Okay, and then you've got end, linebacker. Okay, so sort of a base Notre Dame offensive look and a base Cal look.
Yep.
So what they did on this particular play that I really liked, Vince, and I'm going to just draw it up, bring it up here real quick. I know where this one is, so just bear with me. Okay, what they did on this particular play is this is the post-snap. This is the pre-snap movement, and this is right after the ball. So what happened was we saw the previous play, and you had Estimé over here, and right before the snap, Estimé takes off running. This is right when the ball is snapped. So as soon as Estimé started to take down, remember the safety that was deep here? He starts coming down.
Yeah.
That movement, and they knew that. That's why they ran this play. That's why they ran that motion, is because that could get that back to come down here. Because once Estimé went in motion, they're technically in a 3-receiver side, right? Because you had already had 1 back to that side in a receiver. Now you're in a 3-receiver side. If he stays back, they're completely out-leveraged and outnumbered to the field if they're going to run some kind of, bubble screen or something like that. So he has to kind of come down and get into the alley. So that takes the safety out of the play. Then that leaves Chris Tyree man-to-man against that linebacker, and he destroyed him. I mean, I don't even think the linebacker knew that he was supposed to move. He stepped out, and then Chris Tyree beat him right inside, got up the seam. Okay, really well-designed play. Really well-designed play. Then they just ran verticals here to occupy them. They ran a vertical here. So it's basically 4 verts with Chris Tyree being the 4th vert.
To occupy that other safety. I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it.
Right.
But like the other safety was occupied by the 2 verts on the other side.
Right.
And, so
if he comes here, then you can always go back to Mayer.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
But they were trying to throw this ball to Chris Tyree. There is 100%. I am 100% certain of that. And the reason I believe that is the best part of that play, which we did not talk about last night, that we absolutely need to talk about as part of this play, as far as why this play worked, is what Drew Pine did after the snap. So I'm going to find this here real quick, because I thought Drew Pine really makes this play work, Vince. So this is that same play. Okay, so if you go back and watch it from the live copy, so Chris Tyree is right here winning this route right here. That's where they're going with the football. Everybody knows it on offense. Tyree knows it. Drew Pine knows it. The receivers know it. And Drew knows that the defense might know it. Look at his eyes, Vince. He is looking here. He also gave a little pump.
Yep.
And as soon as he did that, the safety turned his hips towards Michael Mayer. And as soon as that happened, is ball game.
So the whole point
of Chris Tyree gets
that way is to occupy the safety.
He looks him off with his eyes. Exactly. Yep. And then the pump fake is because what happened was Drew was looking over there and the guy was working out, but he wasn't flipping his hips. So what Drew did by doing a little pump fake is that's when he did a pump fake in Mayer's direction, just like a little like this. As soon as that happened, that guy turned his hips. Once his hips are done, there's not a safety in the NFL. There's not a safety in college football that can be that far outside, flip his hips towards Mayer, and then come back and catch Chris Tyree, the seams. Any running back.
Yeah, exactly.
Davis Sherwood. Yeah. Joe Alt could be running that seam route and a tackle eligible, and that safety's not going to have enough time to get back over there. He played tight end in high school, right? And so really, really good play design. But if the quarterback doesn't look that off, if he drops back and just kind of looks at Tyree, that safety comes over and he's all over it. So it was great design, Vince. It was great execution. And Drew, that's the kind of play that you need to see. You need to see Drew get more chances to execute. And then, of course, Drew needs to execute it and make those throws. And at times Saturday, he did not. This also came right after, I think the next series, after he got his butt chewed out by Tommy Rees. I believe this was the next series.
Well,
right?
No, because the next series was when he fumbled. And then he got his butt chewed by Freeman.
Marcus Freeman, okay.
They didn't score.
So after his back-to-back butt chewings, this is the next series.
Yes,
and he leads him right down the field.
Yep.
So Drew fumbles the ball, right? So I'm going to look at my notes. Drew fumbles the ball. They lose the ball. The very next series, he leads him down the field on a touchdown pass and throws a touchdown pass. Right? That's what you want to see from a kid, right? You screwed up. Everybody here knows it. So we can either bench you, scream at you, yell at you, tell you suck like everyone in the message board did, or you can get your butt chewed out, tell you what you need to do, and then you need to go back out there and do it. And guess what? He went back out there and did it. And that's coaching, and that's what a quarterback needs to do if he's gonna be the leader of this football team. Absolutely. So I want to get to a couple other things too, Vince, in the past game that I thought I really liked, and it was the way that the play to Audric Estimé that came out in the set up the Michael Mayer touchdown, which, by the way, the route that Michael Mayer put on that guy was just absurd. That was absolutely absurd.
Look,
what he
Michael
did
Mayer
to that guy.
Is playing at another level when it comes to his routes and catching the football and all. He's at another level right now.
Yeah.
And he's making plays for this offense when sometimes there's no plays to be made. And so I just want to, everybody with eyeballs can see how good Michael Mayer is in the pass game, but even the nuances are really good in the pass game.
Of course, I would like to see him, block somebody. That would be nice.
Completely agree with that. Yep.
But at least in the run game, we're seeing him do some really good things. So the next play that I wanted to bring up, Vince, is the pass to Audric Estimé.
Yes, the 36
because I thought that was a really, really interesting play because it did not actually go how I thought it did watching it live, which is partly why we go into the film review. So Notre Dame is again in 21 personnel, right? So they're again in 21 personnel, 2 backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end. This is Audric Estimé here, and then he started off in the backfield in the same alignment they were, and then before the snap, they just kind of moved him. It wasn't a motion. It was just a move, like a shift. They put Chris Tyree here. Now, this is second half. Chris Tyree has been ripping Cal, right? He had the pass play. He's had a couple screens. He's been hurting with the pass. Now, all of a sudden, look at what Cal's defense is doing, right? Corner, nickel, safety, right? They're a lot more concerned about Chris Tyree now than they were before. Okay. And then you've got linebacker, defensive end. So what we thought live was that this alignment, which again, I liked, caused, having Chris Tyree here meant that Audric Estimé was going to run his angle route against this guy, which is a matchup I like.
Right.
Well, that's not exactly how the play went down, Vince. How the play went down was they actually blitzed him, the Jackson Sermon, and the defensive end dropped into coverage. That's actually how the play went down. Which I thought, yes. So I thought the play was designed well, no matter what they did, but how they defended it kind of post-snap, how Cal defended it post-snap and what their post-snap movement was, made that play even more effective. And I'm going to try to, I believe I have that play brought up here, so I'm going to try to get to it here real quick. Don't be laughing, Vince. This isn't funny.
You're making me laugh, man.
I'm not making you laugh.
You are.
You're choosing to laugh, which I understand. I would be too if I was you. But the plays, like I labeled all the plays, right? And then the stupid program that we're using doesn't bring over the labels.
Doesn't show your labels.
So and it doesn't put them in the same order of what I put them in. It really is not helpful, even a little bit. So I don't even know if this play made it over there. So, it looks like that play did not make it over into the file. So let me see if I do have that and see if we have the estimate post-snap. And then we'll put that. Yeah, it looks like I don't have it in there. So anyway, you'll see the play. We'll draw it back up here, Vince. We'll put it up back this way. So anyway, what happens was because they get in here, this actually plays right into Notre Dame's hands.
Oh, man.
Because now they put a defensive end in coverage against Estimé, and then that angle route hits, and it really, really went for a big play. So I liked the call regardless, but Cal, this is what you say. You when you talk about why do you have to be real careful with your blitzing, Vince, because this is one of those times you chose to blitz here, and your blitz allowed Notre Dame to get into a matchup that you really are not going to win. There aren't a lot of running backs for teams that have a pulse that you're going to be able to put a defensive end on coverage in him on an angle route and have success.
And
you're just not going to do it.
In Cal's defense, they had no idea that Estimé was going to run an angle route,
But
right?
that's
I
my
mean,
but that's my point. That's
yeah,
why you have to
exactly.
be careful with how much you blitz,
Right. And
because you
someone
are going to
said,
get
why would
caught in
he
these
do
type of
that?
things.
But it's like
Right.
you're taking a chance. Like if he just stays in to block or something like that, you're good and you're bringing pressure and
Right.
you're good. But he ran an angle route and it wasn't good for Cal. And Notre Dame. And here's the key: Notre Dame executed it and they did what they were supposed to do, and it was good. So hey, that's football coaching, man. Like you take chances and you hope that the other team is doing something different so that you can be successful. And there's a lot of gambling that takes place, for example, double safety blitz against Ohio State. There's some gambling that takes place, and sometimes you get burned and sometimes you connect, right? So that's just how coaching goes, man.
Yep. So, but that's also why do you call that play if you're Notre Dame? Because you're getting a lot of linebacker fires. Because what you're actually trying to do there is you're either trying to get an ISO against the linebacker, or if they bring a linebacker fire, you're going to run right behind him,
right,
in a catch and run.
Almost
so it ended up being the same thing.
But
you're calling that. But you're calling that sort of, it's similar. Yeah, you're trying to get a guy in space, take advantage of the blitz, but you're calling that because they're bringing so many linebacker fires. That's why you're calling that play. So Notre Dame didn't just, what should we run here? Let's try this angle route. Why were the angle routes a part of this? And they ran 5 or 6 of them in this game. This is the one that they threw. But why were they a part of what they're doing? Because they're like, that one time we catch them, and that's why you run it a few times, because the one time we catch them in a linebacker fire, and I think they brought both linebackers on this play, which is why the end dropped.
Yeah, right.
Is why it works. Now, it wasn't all roses for the Notre Dame offense.
No,
there were a lot of missed opportunities in this game. And the reason we're going to show these is partly to say this is the kind of stuff that can happen, but also to show that, like, it's still an execution problem. It's not guys not being able to get open and all that other kind of stuff. It still comes down to you got to be able to execute simple stuff. And we're going to show a couple examples here, Vince. This is, I think, first play of the game. I believe this is the first play of the game. Right? Talk about trying to, as a coach, design a way to get your quarterback some easy throws.
Right.
I mean, what is that? Right? It's the first play of the game. I mean, I don't know if I could design a better situation than to have that much room to work for my quarterback to make that short of a throw.
And look where the defenders are, by the way.
There is what defenders?
Well, that's my point. So, like, the corner failing because you're running them off, right?
Right.
And there's no linebackers following him. I mean, this is literally pitch and catch, and it was not executed well. And whether Drew was just too hyped or whatever, you can't spike this into the ground. And that's what he did.
Right. And, Vince, this is the kind of thing we saw a lot Saturday. And this is the kind of thing that, we're going to show more examples of here. Because the reality is when you're playing a team like Cal, you can get away with this because Cal's a quality team, but they're not a great team. They're a decent team, but you can make mistakes like this and get away with it and get W's.
Right.
But what you can't do is run plays like this and have missed opportunities like this against good teams, because when you play good teams, you're going to have these kind of you're going to get beat. It's going to hurt you. It's going to cost you a game. And it almost cost them this game, but fortunately for Notre Dame, Cal is not a great team. Decent team, but not a great team. Here's another example. Similar play. This is later in the game. This is your All-American tight end. And this is all this room to work.
Almost the exact same
throw it into
play,
the ground.
Different receiver, essentially.
Pretty much was. Now, and this is Joe Wilkins blocking no one. He just tried to throw a shoulder in the guy. This guy runs free. This guy runs free. Now, this is a double missed opportunity, because if Joe Wilkins makes this block right here and just shows any kind of quality technique, it's Michael, and Drew Pine hits that. It's Michael Mayer is outside the hash, and the only person not over here outside that hash is this defensive lineman and this 5'10", 175-pound corner. I mean, as a play caller, it's like, what else am I supposed to do? Now, here's the thing. As a play caller, your job is, what the heck else am I supposed to do? as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, your job is to coach those guys up in a way where they don't make those kind of mistakes and they execute the game better, right? I mean, that's all part of it, right? I mean, so you're like, hey, as a play caller, everything is rosy. As a guy that is designing the offense, then yeah, I understand. It's frustrating. So there's another play that we're gonna draw up here, Vince, and this is the seam route to Michael Mayer. This is another missed opportunity. Opportunity. So on this particular play, it's 3rd and 9 because Notre Dame was in a 3rd and 4, and they false started. So Notre Dame is basically running their all go concept again, right? So what that means is all verts concept is everybody's running a vertical route on the outside or a seam route on the inside. Now, any team that knows how to coach all verts knows that you have conversions built in, meaning if you're running a go route here and this corner bails at the snap, then you're going to run to a specified depth and stop. Either some teams will do comebacks, some teams will just do stops. Depends on how they teach it. And then inside you have routes where you're going to kind of work upside this seam. You're going to work upside this seam. You have to make sure the spacing is good. Like this guy can't get into here. You got to avoid that. You've got to work outside this seam, have proper spacing. And then if this guy kind of bails,
Yeah. Right. We always talk numbers, seam, numbers, just to have landmarks for kids to find.
And the landmarks will be different in high school for college because of the different. Correct.
Exactly.
So you have to get on your landmark. So what happens here is this guy bails, okay, and this guy bails, and then Michael Mayer runs up the seam. They brought, I think it was this guy fired and this guy dropped. So what happened was Mayer gets up the seam, and the linebacker kind of drops underneath Mayer. So the mistake that Drew Pine made, and what he has to do is Mayer is going to kind of have an opening here. He's got to throw that ball out into space and let Mayer go get it. That's what he has to do. And what he tried to do was throw it over the linebacker with some zip. Now, you can throw it over the linebacker, but you got to put a little bit of touch on it to get it up over him to allow Mayer to kind of keep running and go up and get it. But the ideal decision here is to throw that ball over the middle, Vince, because what happened was when they brought this fire, this guy here, there was a big window right here, and it should have been about as easy of a 3rd and 9 conversion as you're going to have.
Correct.
And when you're watching this game, Vince, it's like these are the kind of things that you constantly see that say, you just can't have these kind of mistakes because these aren't play calling mistakes. These aren't, and we'll show one more here.
That's why Tommy Rees is so upset. He's like,
right. Well, but you know what? Your job is to teach these. A coordinator is responsible for a team not executing as well.
No,
position coaches got to take some of this too. Here's another example. You've got a tight end blocking. This was a design swing screen to Chris Tyree. It goes for like 1 yard. Okay. You got the tight end has this guy sealed, and then a defensive lineman chasing there. And then this is Lorenzo Styles, who literally blocks no one. He literally was here, Vince, and he just ran right down there and blocked no one. This is him falling down after trying to react to block him. So first of all, the corner was up and the safety was deep. I think he should have blocked the corner. Some teams never asked.
Yeah.
Huh?
I was going to say
some teams will. Go ahead, Vince.
I was just going to say, depending on how it's taught, you go with first threat, and first threat is that corner, not the safety.
Yeah, we did MDM, most dangerous man, is how we taught it. MDM. Some teams will just always say block the safety. I think that's stupid. I think that's like 20 years ago stuff. It's block the most dangerous man. I want the running back going against the guy that has the most ground to cover to get to him is my thing. Yeah. But even if you just block him, then you've got Chris Tyree in space. But what ends up happening is Tyree's here, and both of these guys kind of closing the football, and there's really nowhere for him to go. But it's just another example, Vince, of offensively, you're just not executing simple stuff. You're not blocking a safety. You're not blocking a corner. You're not coming down and getting certain guys. And those are the type of things that you're just seeing way too much of from the receivers. And it's a sophomore like Lorenzo Styles or a fifth-year guy like Joe Wilkins and everybody in between. And like Tobias Merriweather comes in the game. He's supposed to go in motion. He doesn't go. Play gets blown up, and we don't see him again the rest of the game.
That's true.
Okay, I can't trust him. Here's my point. How is that any different than what Joe Wilkins did twice on Saturday? How is that any different than Lorenzo Styles right there whiffing on 2 straight guys? How is that any different on Matt Salerno still not knowing how to run an in cut? He just runs into a guy and then pushes off and comes inside. Thank God the ball didn't get thrown to him, because it would have been another pass interference. How is it any different than Jaden Thomas missing blocks or not getting open? I mean, Jaden Thomas was out there for several snaps on Saturday, and you could barely notice him. He's not really blocking that great. They're not using him in the pass game. He's just a decoy. Okay, why does a freshman have a higher standard of, like, a sort of a higher burden of proof than the veterans? Why do the veterans get to make stupid mistakes and bad mistakes and lazy mistakes, and they're fine? You're going to get back in there. But if a freshman comes in and God forbid he makes a mistake, we don't see him again. That's the kind of trust crap that I'm sick of hearing about. Because why do you hold the 18-year-olds to a higher standard than you hold the guys that have been in your program for a while? And that's why Tobias Merriweather doesn't play. And that's a mistake, in my opinion, because you didn't give him a ton of reps in practice, and he gets out there and you just use him as a blocker, and then he doesn't, get in position on one particular play. And what happened was Drew was kind of trying to motion him, and Zeke snapped the ball. And there was a miscommunication on the handoff, or like the timing that was in off the handoff, and Drew just kept it and ran around the edge. Right? It's kind of what happened. Well, okay, Tobias messed up, but that's no different than Joe Wilkins messing up. It's no different than Josh Lugg messing up. It's no different than your fifth-year senior captain messing up on a false start on 3rd and 5. It's no different than your fifth-year senior wide receiver and your quarterback, who's a junior, not doing what they need to do, which causes a 3rd and 1 to turn into a 3rd and 6. It's no different than what you're seeing everywhere else. But for the freshman, the standard is apparently higher. He can't make mistakes, because if he makes a mistake, he's out. And that's the mentality they have on offense right now, and it's got to change. It's got to change like a week ago, but it's definitely got to change now, because the reality is, I would argue that 2 of your 4 most talented players on your offense basically just don't play, and when they have played, they've just been brought in to be blockers, and that's Eli Raridan and Tobias Merriweather, right? And yes, Tobias played. Okay, freaking get him in the field on the game more. Get him more reps in practice, because right now, you know what you have in Matt Salerno, and you know what you have in Jaden Thomas, and it's not going to be good enough to beat Clemson. Right. It's not going to be good enough to beat USC. So get him in there now and get him coached up and ready for those games. It's not going to be good enough to beat BYU, most likely.
Those guys' execution in the game isn't going to change if they get a few fewer reps during practice either, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So, getting Merriweather some reps in practice will help him, but I don't see anything changing with those other guys. If things are going to change, they need to change it themselves.
Right.
It's not going to be about reps in practice.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is about reps in practice, because you can't expect the guy to – I get what you're saying, Vince, but it's also about reps in practice, because you need to get the young guy enough reps in practice that he can make that mistake on Wednesday.
Right. I'm saying –
I get what you're saying. Like, I know
the older guys don't. That's what I'm saying.
Well, they are getting the reps and still screwing up, is my point.
So I don't think it's going to change.
Let the young kid who's begging to get on the field play, but that's the stuff we've seen for 12 years, previous 12 years. And I'm tired of it, right? This is why your offense stinks right now. Let's be honest. It's not because your freshman made a mistake. It's because your veterans are making mistakes.
Multiple.
So at least put the kid who's clearly your most talented player at the position on the field.
Because my issue and with wide receiver blocking, yes, it's about technique, but it's also about effort.
It's 90% effort. It's 90% want to.
Yes.
Wide receiver blocking is 90% want to and 10%, 5% knowing who to block and 5% technique. That's what receiver blocking is.
And they're not breaking down. They're just kind of throwing a shoulder. Like, that's just lazy to me. It's lazy blocking. They're not even giving an effort. I mean, how about you just shuffle your feet and get in the way? Like, you'd be more effective doing that than trying to lower a shoulder into somebody in open field. You know how easy it is to get around somebody who's just trying to lower a shoulder into you?
I mean, fifth-year senior. And that's the frustrating thing. It was a fifth-year senior. Yeah. And there's also some other things going on, Vince, that you look at and you say, okay, well, like this is happening with veteran players. And again, that's kind of part of my frustration. We're still seeing some of the same spacing issues. This is a play from Saturday. Notre Dame player here, Notre Dame player there, Notre Dame player there.
That's ridiculous.
How do you have 3 guys from the hash to the numbers basically on the same level, essentially? Right? Like, how is this happening? And we saw this. There was a couple times where the other one of the tight ends would just kind of bend way inside on like a vertical, and you're like, dude, you're standing right on top of the other tight end. Actually, I think this is one of those plays. No, this is not. This is Salerno right here, and this is a tight end right there. So I think this is Michael Mayer. So I think it was Kevin Bauman and Matt Salerno. So I think Salerno actually is right here, but then this guy, because I believe this is a verse, the tight end brings that guy over. Like if the tight end is here, this safety has to be over here. Now all of a sudden Salerno has a nice little window to get that ball thrown to him. You know what I mean?
Look at the nice pocket that Drew has to throw out of. He's got nowhere to put the football because guys aren't running the right routes.
Vince, the ball was – where was the line of scrimmage here? The line of scrimmage is here, I believe. I think that's where the sticks are. Oh, I can't see the yard marker. But point is, the line of scrimmage is like somewhere here. Michael Mayer, your tight end, is almost 20 yards downfield. And Drew Pine still has this big old pocket back here.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And if this tight end does his job and stays up here, you've now got this nice little window there to Matt Salerno to get him the football first down.
Right.
You don't see you should not be making this mistake in game 3. And this is a junior and a fifth-year senior. Now, again, I don't think the fifth-year senior is the one that made the mistake here. Right. Matt Salerno made mistakes in other instances, but I don't think Matt Salerno was the one that made a mistake here.
I agree.
So these are the type of things, Vince, that we continue to see too much of for the Notre Dame offense. And now the good thing is we saw them make some plays. We saw the line get going. We saw the line get a push. We saw the run game stuff. We saw some well-designed things, but there was way too many missed opportunities and not nearly enough just attacking and pushing the ball down the field. And Notre Dame is not going to be able to nickel and dime their way in the pass game there. Because here's what's going to happen. They run those little slides, those little, things where they're getting people wide open. Guess what? Teams are going to see that and defend it moving forward. Notre Dame on Saturday, Vince, went 1 of 3 on passes thrown beyond 10 yards. 1 of 3. The only completion was to Chris Tyree on the touchdown. 1 of 3, and you still won a football game, right? That's not going to be good enough to beat North Carolina and good enough to beat BYU and then all those other type of things. And, those things have to get done. Those things have to get fixed. Somebody said the analysis makes Stuckey looks questionable. I don't know if you were paying attention there, but that was a tight end that we were referring to there, okay? Right. And, again, it's not a receiver coach problem, in my opinion, when your veterans are not blocking. That is as much of an offensive coordinator problem as a receiver problem, because the offensive coordinator has a big say on who's playing. Okay. And just some of the things I've been told, the offensive coordinator has a big time influence on who's playing right now on offense. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. So at the end of the day, the offensive coordinator, and Tommy Rees said it I'm just repeating what Tommy Rees said. And I believe Tommy Rees when he says these things. I take responsibility for this because I'm in charge of this thing, and he is. And so he's got to get those things fixed, and he's got to say to Chancey Stuckey, we have got to get Tobias Merriweather going. I believe that Chancey Stuckey would like to play Tobias Merriweather. That's just my opinion. That's just, based on some things I've heard. Not that Chancey would do that, but just that there's a level of trust there that Chancey has in Tobias. He'd like to get him play. And I don't think that exists with the offensive coordinator, and that's got to change. Because what's going to happen is they're going to see this top 100 receiver on your team, and Braylon James and Jane Greathouse are going to start saying, hold on a second now. Like, you're telling me I'm going to go play next year. Tobias can't get on the field, and this is what your offense is doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Right. So those things have got to get better. Vince, let's talk a little bit about the defense here, because there are some things that we want to get to from the Notre Dame defense yesterday. Let's just kind of talk first big picture of what we kind of saw from the defense yesterday. The more I watched the film, the more I'm impressed I was with the play of the Notre Dame defensive tackles.
Yes.
I mean, and we saw this too. Gabriel Rubio got in the game for a few snaps yesterday, not a ton, but he got in the game on Saturday. And he was physical. Chris Smith was physical. Jason Adamiola had a really good game. It looked like vintage Jason Adamiola on Saturday, and we're finally getting a chance to see that a little bit. And and then where we saw, obviously, Howard Cross just continues to do Howard Cross things, but the play of Jacob Lacey was really encouraging. And
Man,
it's
no
what
doubt.
we've been waiting to see from him from a while. And honestly, Vince, it really looks as simple as just it looked like he was finally healthy.
Mhm.
And that's really the big thing. He just looked like he was finally healthy. And so seeing that was really encouraging for me, was
Yeah.
seeing the play of the interior, because they're too small, they're too small, they're too small. Well, this was a far bigger interior offensive line than they have played up to this point in time in the season, and they whooped their butts for 60 minutes.
The whole game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And it was nice to see Isaiah Foskey get involved as well, when
Oh,
he's kind
yeah.
of silent addition to this team the first 2 weeks. And I think I read someplace that him and Justin Tuck had a chat, before the game, because
Mhm.
Justin Tuck was on campus, and he's like, dude, you just got to go out and play.
Yeah.
Don't you're overthinking it. Just go play. And when he wanted to play yesterday, dude, he made plays. I mean, he made plays. And so he just needs to keep following up on that and being
Yeah.
the guy that he is. And so that was at least refreshing to see that he wasn't invisible again. So
I thought, Vince, you tell me if you agree or disagree with this. I thought he was pretty solid all game, run and pass.
absolutely.
They didn't run a lot. Cal didn't run a lot, and they definitely didn't run a lot at him. They kind of ran away from him a lot. They ran towards the strong side a lot, so he didn't really see a lot of action. But I thought this was the most consistent effort we've seen from Isaiah. And I don't mean effort like he wasn't playing hard in the past, but I think it's kind of what you said about Justin Tuck, is he was thinking too much. He's like, okay, which move do I use here?
Right.
Make him stop your first move before you go to a counter. This is what I was saying last week when we were talking about baseball. It's in high school. People say, why don't you throw a curveball or changeup? So no, we hit my fastball. When I hit my fastball, I'll throw something different.
Exactly.
Same thing with Isaiah Foskey, and that's the analogy we use. Make them stop your first move first, then your counter is much more effective.
Yeah.
And so we saw him do that. We saw him do that on Saturday. And so he's got to carry it. Now you start stepping into a situation and where you say, Vince, like, okay, now you're in a situation where, okay, you had this big game. Now it's time to go out and say, build on it and know what people are going to be prepared to see, that you're going to do, and then go out and fix it. Right.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, Vince, is what we saw was the defensive line was as good as I thought it was. There were some exceptions, and we're going to draw up a couple of those things. And this is something that's got to get fixed, because they're going to play some quarterback. Jack Plummer had double-digit minus yards in the first two games, and he had 81. I think it was 81 gained yards on Saturday on scrambles. Not all of us on the defensive line. He had one 10-plus yard scramble that was on a corner fire. And some of it's on the linebackers. But we're gonna kind of show an example of one of the plays. And I'm just going to have Vince kind of talk through. I'm going to set the scene here real quick. This is a 3rd and 12. Notre Dame is in it looks to me, Vince, like they were in kind of a 2-man look is what I thought I saw. So you have man coverage here, right? Man coverage here, man coverage here, and man coverage here. And then two safeties deep playing over the top. Okay.
Correct. And everything was, from my copy, because you get to all 22, but from my copy, everybody kind of it was a vertical situation.
All verts. All verts.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then J.D. Bertrand is playing the back.
Yes. Yeah. He's one-on-one with the back. No doubt about that. So you want me to continue? Run the play? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a play where, again, it was all verts. So that means the safeties are bailing. That means that the corners and all the other guys that are one-on-one, they turn their back, because that's how you play one-on-one. I mean, you turn your back to the line of scrimmage and you play the eyes or the hands or whatever if the ball is in the air, that kind of a thing, but you turn your back, right? Which is why the scramble was so effective, right? So it's decent pass protection, okay? Decent pass protection. The linebacker, which is Bertrand, he is in charge of the running back. So the running back steps up, he moves to his right, okay? And he kind of leaks out a little bit, but not very much. And Bertrand just bites hard.
He doesn't really leak out as much, Vince.
Yeah.
He steps up the pass pro, nobody comes, and then he just kind of steps across the line of scrimmage.
Right. He doesn't, exactly. But Bertrand was very worried about what that running back was going to do. And so he immediately steps to his left, right? So the offense is right, the defense is left.
He steps into the line on 3rd and 12.
Right. And here's what he needed to do, right? He needs to stay in the middle, kind of eyeball the quarterback, eyeball the running back, because look, if everything is covered deep which it must have been because Plummer
It
wasn't
was.
throwing
It
the
was
ball.
very well covered. Very well covered.
Keep an eye on the guy that you're in charge of, right? Which is the running back. But if he catches the ball and he gains 5 yards or whatever,
keep him in front of you.
Yes, you have an opportunity to make that play. It's 3rd and 12. You got plenty of
3rd
room.
and 12 from their own territory too. It's different if it's 3rd and 12 from the 40, and you don't want to just give them 7 easy yards and then tackle them because now they're in 2-down territory or field goal territory.
Right, exactly.
But it's field awareness. And then also, Vince, you had a wide track here by Foskey, a wide track. Actually, that was Foskey. That's Adamiola. And then this guy kind of took a double team, and then Jason Adamiola went B-gap, and he went high. And that was one of the other issues is you can't have 3 defensive linemen run past the quarterback level. Correct. And that's what happened on this play too.
So Jason needs to stay low on that. If your ends are going to go high, then your defensive tackles both have to stay low because then that allows the contain of the quarterback.
Right. You've got to take your rush to a certain point, and once you know that you're to the quarterback level, you've got to spin back inside. Right. Basically is what you need to do. Or stop and say, you've got to have enough awareness of where the quarterback is to say, hey, I've now run past the quarterback.
Correct.
And I need to come back.
This play was a twofold problem. Okay. Right. It was the linebacker biting on the running back too hard and taking himself out of the play. And then it was also the lack of contain from the defensive line. The quarterback sneaks out right where
there was just no purpose for him, Vince. That's what was first. There was no purpose to what J.D. Bertrand was doing. Right. That was 3rd and 12. Right. Like, why are you stepping down? Because here's the other thing with where this back is. Why are you stepping down? Because the thing I'd be scared of is him going here the way that kid plays.
Right.
I want to stay here to be able to defend some kind of screen or some kind of swing. And we saw a lot of this from linebackers. They don't play with a lot of purpose.
Right.
Like they don't seem to they'll just kind of, even when they blitz, they just blitz and just run right into a guy. Like, oh, I'm just going to run right into this. This is my gap. I'm going to run right into this guy. No thought of block destruction. No thought of taking a shoulder and trying to get to a shoulder. Right. This play right here, there was just no purpose to what he was doing. Like, if you don't want him to run a route and you want to trigger, then blitz. Right. Because if he blitzes, he's stepping into the A gap that was vacated by Jason's pressure in the B gap, and now you've got all the blitzes covered, and you force that back to step in, and then Jack Plummer's got to get outside, and then you have a little bit more of a chance of Foskey or somebody maybe getting off and chasing him, which they did. That's another thing too they didn't do is the defensive ends didn't do a good job of the outside contain on other plays. It wasn't an issue on this particular play, but it was an issue on other plays, Vince. Right. And that, look, here's the deal. You take those two, you take the quarterback scrambles away, and Cal maybe has 10 points.
Right. Absolutely.
They could do nothing. They could do nothing in this game.
On a 4th down. So that was 3rd and long, 1st down. 4th and long, 1st down. The scrambles were just at such inopportune times for the Notre Dame defense, and that, it killed them. It kept drives alive. It was just not good. We talked about it, in the show, we talked about it in the show last night. We're sitting next to each other, and you're like, if he scrambles for a 1st down, that 4th down, you're like, I'm leaving. And he scrambles for a 1st down. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how does this continue to happen? You know what I mean? And so that has to get better. The D-line has to contain better. Just because you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, you still have responsibilities. That's what people I don't think understand. I think people in our chat are real smart. They probably get it. But it's what people don't understand is it's not just go get the quarterback. You still have a responsibility if you're not involved in a sack.
Go get the quarterback within the structure of the defense. Right.
Exactly. And so that is something that they need to work on. There's no doubt. Now, they were getting good pressure, especially up the middle, like you mentioned. I thought
they dominated the Cal offensive linemen. Just simple as that. The losses were contained, missed assignments. It was never, Cal blocked you well there. Right. And the next couple plays are going to be examples of that. And this is something that Notre Dame needs to fix now. Because with North Carolina and BYU on their schedule, this next play, for example, is going to be a big one, Vince. And this is a bubble screen. And I said this to you beforehand, Vince. If I'm a team playing Notre Dame, I'm going to bubble screen you to death.
Yeah.
Because they constantly leave themselves out leveraged.
This one was frustrating.
Yes. So what Vince thought was, and we could be mistaken, Well, one of us is. It's one of two things. It's not one of us is, but there were two options we thought are possible here, and one of them is incorrect. But basically, there's like this little half fake here, and both linebackers kind of come like this. They either bite really hard on the fake, or what I think is the case, they're coming on a double fire, right? And so then what happens is Cal just runs a bubble screen, and just simple as that. And they gain 10+ yards, and it is the easiest 10+ yards I've ever seen a team get on a bubble screen. Yes. And this happens way too much. Like, I don't know why Cal doesn't go back to this more in this game, to be honest with you. Now, this guy's got to do a better job of getting off blocks and just blowing this thing up. But even if you blow that up, look how soft you are here and look how far you're coming here. I mean, you've got a blocker to account for those two guys, and this guy's got to come from 11 yards off the ball and 13 yards away from that guy in order to kind of get down there. Like, you're not putting your defenders in a good position on that one. If you're going to play this guy this deep, then these guys need to be up tighter. Yeah, is my big thing.
Everybody can't fighting it. This is saying throw ball. Like, you got to, if you're a good offense, you check to this play. Like, I mean, it's such a gimme that you check to this play. And
this was on a 2nd and 1, Vince.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's not even like this was like 3rd and 12. This is a 2nd and 1. Like this is in the first half. They had just run a corner fire. This is the play. So no, this is 1st and 10. This is the play after this corner fire where Cam Hart. It's 4th series, Vince. This is the play right after Cam Hart had the corner fire, or Clarence Lewis had the corner fire that he missed, and he didn't tackle the quarterback.
Gotcha.
This is the next play, and they just run a bubble screen for 11 yards.
Yeah.
And honestly, I am really surprised they didn't do this more. I think that was a mistake by them not to do this more.
And not only were they playing such off coverage, the safety, who is, you would think, responsible for the third receiver, his initial steps, and I get that a safety's initial steps are backwards, right? But he goes almost 3.5 yards back, right? Before he realizes, I got to get downhill now. Right. You know what I mean? And again, he's 13 yards off. He's not going to be able to prevent a lot of it. But as soon as you see this guy leak out as a bubble situation, man, you got to be coming, and you got to come now. And especially if you're right and the linebackers were double firing, the safety has to come right now, because normally I want my linebacker to kind of slow play that a little bit and then come over the top and chase that down, right? And then you allow your safety to come down, et cetera, et cetera. But if you know that both linebackers are coming right now, you've got to get downhill faster than that. And so, that was too easy. It was too easy.
Here was another mistake from the defense that I kind of think shows the issues that they're having at linebacker, to be honest with you, Vince. And this is a play that you and I talked about. Number one, this is a play where Cal is in a 12 personnel. So again, 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So here's tight end number 1, tight end number 2. They have Notre Dame out leveraged. Now they're okay here, Vince, on the edge, but Notre Dame is in an eagle front, double eagle front, right? And that means basically you have a defensive lineman on the outside shade there, and I'm talking like old school double eagle, not like the modern double eagle where you kind of like 4 eyes, where you kind of play a little bit of both. They're both here inside on the outside shade of the guard, and then a center here. And so Cal sees this, and they simply run an outside zone here. And it makes it really hard, really easy to seal those. And then what makes it worse is you had a really, really bad run fit there from Jack Kaiser. And this whole play was just kind of a mess. But you had 2 issues here. Number one, you had the defensive line out leveraged. The problem is, as we talked about it last night, linebackers have to make the defensive linemen right, and the DBs have to make the linebackers right when it comes to run fits. And what happens here is Jack just completely over pursues the play and, allows it to kind of cut back inside of him. And when those things are happening defensively, you're going to have problems. And it was just another example of one of many, many examples of how bad the linebackers play. Because I'm going to say something now, Vin. I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree with me after watching the film. It speaks volumes how well the Notre Dame defensive line and secondary are playing right now. it speaks volumes how well they're playing that Notre Dame can be as good as they were on Saturday for the most part with how bad the linebackers played. You have to be pretty dominant on the first and third levels for that to be the case.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point because you have to work part
mistakes.
You have, I mean, you can have a really good linebacking core, and if your defensive front's no good, then too many guys are going to be getting up into them, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. If your defensive front is really good and your linebackers are average, sometimes you can make up for that from a defensive line standpoint. But I felt like the safeties and the corners were helping to make up for some of the poor linebacker play. And that's not going to work against every opponent on Notre Dame's schedule. Mm-hmm. So that needs to get fixed fast. And if that means, look, and I said at the beginning of the show, we're not talking about firing guys, as far as like losing their positions and all of that. Look, if that means bringing in some of these younger guys, let's see it.
I mean, I am kind of looking at that, though. I do think we need to have a conversation about whether or not some guys have played well enough to earn the spots they have, or at the very least, have they earned the number of reps that they're getting? Maybe that's a better way of saying it, right? Maybe I'm not talking about benching a lot of guys, but look, there needs that accountability, in my opinion. And I just don't know if the answer is mass substitutions. And linebackers is especially a problem because, as I said last night, when your whole position group is not playing well, that's not a player problem only. That's as much of a coaching problem as anything, if not even more so. So I know that the easy answer for fans is always blame the players. I get it, right? Oh, why is Tobias playing? Oh, clearly he's not doing work. It can't be the guys making 6 and 7 figures because they're smarter than everybody else, and we have to trust the coaches, and whatever they do is absolutely correct. And it's clearly that Tobias Merriweather isn't doing what he needs to do. That's clearly the problem, right? Okay, sure, whatever. I get really tired of those things from people. Oh, the linebackers stink. Bench them, put in new guys, and everything is fine.
Right.
No, everything is not fine because the reality is your linebackers are not playing well. All of your linebackers not playing well. And when all of your linebackers not playing well, that goes way deeper than a coaching problem. Way deeper than a coaching problem. And until that gets fixed, this is gonna continue to happen, Vince. And that's what people need to understand and appreciate is this particular position isn't as much about as a fix the coaching as much as it is. I mean, fix the players as much as it is fix the coaching. Because again, name me a linebacker right now that's playing well.
Yeah, I can't.
Like you can't. When that's happening across the board, this goes way deeper than okay, your linebackers aren't playing well.
Yeah,
way deeper than that.
If they're gonna compete at an elite level defensively, I'm not even talking about the team as a whole. I'm just talking about defense. If they're gonna compete at an elite level, they need to get better because we've seen the secondary play at a pretty elite level or getting close or approaching an elite level. We've seen the defensive line start to approach an elite level, right? I haven't seen that step right now from the defensive line. That's the biggest problem for me. So if this defense as a whole is going to be playing at an elite level, then the linebackers have to step up, period. And if that's a coaching situation, if that's a player situation, it needs to get figured out right now because they're about to play a pretty prolific offense here next week, where if the linebackers don't play well, I mean, they're going to be lighting up the scoreboard like they're in Vegas.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be
I don't know about that because if the linebackers could play poorly and they could hold Ohio State to 21 points, they can keep North Carolina down enough. But here's where I'll agree with you, Vince. You now put a lot of pressure on your D-line and your line in your secondary to play great. And you can't keep asking your secondary to play great week after week after week. Eventually, they're going to have an off game.
Sure.
They will.
Yeah.
Every unit does. I don't care how good you are, how bad you're. Alabama's offense last year scores almost 50 points a game all year. Then they go play Auburn, and they can't score a point for like 50-some minutes, right? Mm-hmm. Every team has a bad game. The minute that the Notre Dame secondary has a bad game, this team is in big, big trouble. Big, big trouble, the way that the linebackers are playing. So I understand the point you're making, and I think you're being a bit hyperbolic, but like realistically, they can keep Carolina down enough to win the game, assuming their offense wakes up. But what if this is the week that the secondary has a bad game? They're playing a really good offensive coordinator, Phil Longo. Yeah. This is the best offensive mind they've faced since Ryan Day. And Phil Longo can score some points, right? I mean, so does Notre Dame have the personnel up front to dominate the line? Do they have the personnel in the secondary to keep this thing, to keep the points down enough? Yeah, sure. But this offense, more than the others, is going to attack the linebackers. Cal did not attack the linebackers almost at all.
Right.
Except for lining their running back out wide and having them run go routes, and they missed one and didn't throw another. Right? North Carolina is going to say, we're going after 8, we're going after 27 in the second half, we're going after 52, we're going after 24, because they haven't stopped anybody all year.
I agree.
And if they don't play well, Carolina will score, but you can do enough to keep the points down to still win the game, assuming your D-line and secondary plays great again. But the linebackers got to stop putting him in that situation, Vince. That's Vince. We got 2 super chats we're going to get to. StreamYard is acting funky tonight. Both of our connections are a little jacked up. That's not on us. That's a StreamYard issue. I don't know what their problem is.
Annoying.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap this up soon because I don't like the quality of this right now, and it's frustrating me. But we did have 2 super chats that I did want to get to, and I wanted to thank all of you for being a part of the show tonight. It was a great crowd tonight.
Yes.
But I do want to get to these 2 super chats. We have one from Martin Naufel. Thank you for the super chat, Martin, very, very much. This is Recruit Usher 32. Linebackers look lost, no read step, run fit angles, etc. Agree with all that. What does our linebacker rover rotation look like with J.D. Bertrand being out for the first half? Lastly, do linebackers have too much on their plate? God bless and go Irish. Thank you, Martin. So I agree with Aaron. They look lost, no read steps, bad run fit angles. Just the embarrassing plays they were embarrassing. What we saw from Maris chasing Jack Plummer, and then Bo Bauer, 5th-year senior, falling for that pump fake, reminded me of Carlo Calabrese doing that against Matt Barkley back in 2011. You remember that?
Yes.
Just no reason for that at all. And so to me, that's all a problem. I think Bo Bauer steps into the starting lineup with JD out, and I would imagine Junior Chilamaka is the number 2 guy.
Yeah,
we might see some stuff with Jack Kaiser, especially against Carolina when they're in their 11 and 10 personnel. I think we'll see some stuff where Maris and Jack Kaiser are both inside and they go nickel. I think we'll see that as well. So it's not just Bo playing, but I think we'll see more of Jack Kaiser inside, which hasn't been great last couple weeks, to be completely honest with you. But that's not a shot on Jack because they're all playing poorly.
Right.
But I think we'll see more of that in this game too. Do the linebackers have too much on the plate? I think that right there, Martin, is getting to the heart of the issue. Right there.
Right. Jack of all trades, master of none. And we've kind of talked about that in the past, because if you look at the linebacker depth chart, you've got the same 3 guys or 4 guys everywhere, first and second team. Like, it's just like they're all cross training, and when you look at it as a whole, it's great to have guys be multi-positional and all of those different things. That's great. You're recruiting them. But we need these guys to be really good at one position. And they're not right now. I do feel like that's part of it. I agree. I think they've got too much on their plate.
Yeah. Last thing here before we go, because this is just getting frustrating. D-Win 5 in Super Chat, thank you. Goes, just curious why our offensive and defensive coordinator position groups are 2 of the worst on the team. Too difficult doing both a position coordinator. I'll give Big Al a break seeing how it's his first year, but Tom Reese, come on, man. So Al, as a position coach, obviously the linebackers aren't playing well. I think Al Golden's done a pretty good job in 2 of the 3 games. I mean, a really good job in 2 of the 3 games schematically. I didn't like what they did against Marshall, but what I have heard from several sources is they kind of switched their game plan midweek. Big no-no in college, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that we saw the result of it. I was told that did not happen this week. And I thought the defensive game plan Saturday was very good. I mean, you can always nitpick a call here, a call there. That's true everywhere. But I thought for the most part, the defensive game plan was very good on Saturday. Very good. We saw adjustments for things that had hurt them the week before against Marshall. We saw them adjust some things, be more aggressive with their coverages, take away the quick game. We saw them turn the defensive line loose. All that stuff is positives, right? Now, yes, the position coach-wise, yeah, that's a problem. Now, is that because Al Golden is causing issues? Yeah, I think part of it is because there is too much on he's got a little bit too much in, right? I think for the linebackers have a little bit too much on their plates. but I would not call it a worst or a weakness situation. The linebackers got to play better. There's some coaching things happening that are causing the linebackers not to play well. But as a coordinator, I think Al Golden's done a really good job so far. Now, from a development thing, and D-Win said, I'm speaking in player development. Quarterback, I agree with. Linebacker, I don't necessarily agree with yet. I mean, Al Golden's in, like you said, 3 games, right?
Right.
So
really talking about development.
Yeah. I think the issue there isn't so much development; it's the mental part of asking them to do too much. I think if you scale back that, I think if you adjust and take a little bit off their plate, I think you'll start to see them play better. I do. I do believe in that. I do. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, you can't have coordinators who their position group's not playing well. You can't do that. And if you're going to do that, you need to restructure your situation to where they're not having to coach a position. Or find coaches that can do both.
And remember, there's only X amount of coaches that you can have. So you can't just go hire a bunch of people, to take that burden off their plate. It's almost like you got to rob Peter to pay Paul, right? You have to take something away from somewhere else if you don't want them coaching a position. So that is something you have to think about too.
Right. That's going to do it for tonight's show, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Ryan and Vince will be back Ryan and Sean will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock for the recruiting show, and they will talk some college football week 1. Vince, will you be on with Sean tomorrow night at 6 o'clock? So tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern is IB Nation Sports Talk. That'll be Sean Stiers and Vince D'Addario, this guy right there. I'll be on that. I'll be back Tuesday. We're gonna start dive right into North Carolina stuff on Tuesday. So we're gonna have a lot going on with that. I'll be here in the home office Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but I am flying home to Virginia on Wednesday evening. So the Thursday and Friday shows will be from my Virginia office, which is AKA my parents' dining room, where I did some shows this summer. I'm gonna go see my family for a couple days before I head down to North Carolina for the game. So, and that's where I'll be for our post-game show on Saturday as well. So, for Vince, I'm Brian. Everybody, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please share this podcast if you're listening via podcast. I would really greatly appreciate it if you gave us a 5-star review. Sign up for the message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Try all the stuff. Trade coffee. Give it a shot. You'll love it. My wife genuinely loves it. I got my mom turned on to it now. Built Bars. Use the Irish Breakdown promo code to get 10% off your entire purchase. You also have the IB merch store, all that good stuff. We got a lot going on in Irish Breakdown, so check it all out. For Vince, I'm Brian, y'all. Thank you so much for being on the Irish Breakdown podcast.